Podcasters, how are you guys doing? I am Lexi Johnson. I'm an international speaker. I am a licensed financial coach, strategist, wealth accumulation specialist, all the things. And I'm excited to be back. We took a few weeks off from the podcast. Sometimes you just got to take a break, scheduled or not scheduled, but we did so. And so we're back. This is episode 30. I'm so grateful that you are joining us today. Listen, as you are coming into the room, let us know who you are, right? Where you're watching from, meaning not the platform, but like where you are in the world, right? Where are you watching from? And again, I am excited that you are here. And do me one more favor, will you? Will you take a moment to share this broadcast out? Somebody on your timeline is in need of this information or is going to benefit from this information, right? So as you're doing that, I am pulling up one of the places where I'm broadcasting on my phone. And hopefully I'll be able to see everybody's comments here in StreamYard, right? So as usual, we have a crazy money story for you today. And then we're going to get into today's topic. And then we're going to talk about some upcoming events. And so let's get into it, right? All right. So what's today's crazy money story? Today's crazy money story. Now, this is an old one. Sometimes I do some that are pretty recent. Sometimes I do some that are a little older. And sometimes I do some that are way older. But in any case, these are all crazy money stories. So this one took place in 2010. There were some officials in Tokyo that went to congratulate their oldest living citizen, which happened to be a man by the name of Sogen Kato. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Don't quote me, right? But he was 111 years old. So they went to congratulate him, in most, I think even here in the United States, like certain states or cities or whatever will do that too when they find that they have, someone who's lived that long or they're the oldest living citizen. They go and they kind of recognize them. Anyway, this took place in Tokyo. When they got to the location, to the home where this man lived, he had an 81-year-old daughter, and she turned them away. Okay. So it kind of sent some red flags up because they were like, why would you turn them away? They were coming to celebrate him. They were coming to, just acknowledge 111 years on this earth, so why would she turn him away? And the story doesn't say this, but I would venture to think that she really didn't even give them like a great reason either. Who knows, right? So welfare officials somehow were called out, and they were denied visits several times. So more suspicion, right? And now the police are asked to investigate. So here's what happened, okay? Once the police began to investigate, what they soon discovered was Kato's mummified body, wearing underwear and pajamas, lying in bed covered with a blanket. That's right, you heard me correctly. His mummified body, wearing underwear and pajamas, lying in a bed chair covered with a blanket. Can you imagine? Like, how long had that been going on? About to tell you. Kato had been dead for almost, how many years do you think? How many years do you think? If you're watching, drop a comment in the chat. If you're watching, hey Richard, good to see you. How many years do you think that this man had been dead before they actually discovered all of this was going on? If you're just joining, we're doing our crazy money story, and then we're getting into the topic for the day. So whether you're watching live or watching the replay, you can play along, right? So drop in the chat, how many years do you think it was that this man had been lying dead before they discovered? Okay. So for those of you just hopping on, I'm going to recap. We got, this is our crazy money story. Took place in Tokyo, 2010. The city officials were going to celebrate this man because he was 111 years old. When he got there, the daughter turned them away, raised a little suspicion. They began to send welfare officials over. Those visits were denied. So raised the level of suspicion again. Now the police are asked to investigate. They discover that the man, his body has been mummified, and they had been keeping his body, or the daughter had been keeping his body. He was wearing underwear, pajamas, and lying in bed covered with a blanket. All right. This man had been dead for 30 years. 30 years, right? Makes you wonder, like, did she professionally mummify bodies? Like, how did they, keep his body for 30 years? But anyway, 30 years, 30 years. And over the course of that 30 years, his daughter hid his death and collected over 106,000 in pension payments. Isn't that crazy? That's just absolutely crazy. The stuff people will do for money. My goodness. Anyway, let's get on with our topic for the day: to bank or not to bank. Okay, listen, over the last few weeks, we've been hearing about, these bank failures in the news. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it. People have been, watching the news, and certain things have been happening. And let's talk about it, okay? And I wanted to talk about, is this similar to what happened in 2008? If it is, how? If it isn't, what are the differences? And how does this affect us? And what can we expect next? Or what do we think will happen next after these bank failures? Okay, so if you have any questions regarding this topic, you are welcome to put them in the chat, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. If I don't know, I'm just going to say I don't know. Okay. So you're welcome to put questions in the chat, and then hopefully I will see them. If you're on a platform or on a page where I cannot see your answers for some reason, don't worry. Your comments or questions, don't worry. I'm going to come back to the places where this broadcast is posted and make sure that I, look for questions to answer that I may not have answered during this live stream. Okay. So again, as you're coming in the room, say hello. Okay. Don't be rude walking into my place and not say hello, right? Say hello. And I will do my best to acknowledge you. All right. So we've got these bank failures going on. Let's just talk about 2008 for a minute. If you saw my post today, sharing with you all, hey, we're going to be on at 5:30 talking about this. In 2008, we had, we had a recession, right? In 2008, and it was the mortgage crisis, and all of that was going on, right? And so I was affected by a lot of by that. And in my post, I talked about all the things that I had lost financially, and I talked about what that did to my confidence, what it did to just, who I was as a person. Um, and then I talked about like how I was able to turn it around. Long story short, God restoring everything that I've lost and more. So go back to the post and read it. But here we are in 2023, and now we are, seeing some bank failures again. And people are wondering, is this a repeat of 2008? What's going on? So the interesting thing is that there have been some 563 bank failures between 2001 and 2023. And so you would say, okay, after 2008 and, 2009 and all that around there, you didn't really hear too much about all these different bank failures. So now the bank failures are in the news again, right? Because if they continue to occur, this is not something that just occurs in a recession. This is something that, occurs throughout. Okay. Now, we may not have as many bank failures in between these times or in between a recession, but they occur. So why are they in the news now, right? That's something that we're going to talk about a little later on. So this month of March brought us again, like I said, to the news talking about these various different bank failures. Okay, so let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about some of these failures. So there was Silvergate Bank, there was Silicon Valley Bank, and there was Signature Bank. And then you've got First Republic Bank, First Republic Regional Bank, based in San Francisco, that's going through some things. They haven't failed as of yet, but they are going through some things. And let's talk about these banks and what happened to them. Okay. So I think maybe kind of go backwards, but let's talk about First Republic Regional Bank. First Republic has not quite failed yet. And why is that? Because there were about 11 of the largest US banks that provided up to about $30 billion to support First Republic Regional Bank to keep it from collapsing. Okay. And the Federal Reserve, has done some things as well. Um, and so, anyway, that bank is still moving, it's still opening, but it got support from 11 large banks. Okay. Unlike Silvergate Bank. Okay. Silvergate Bank collapsed. This was about March 8th. Well, actually, what happened was March 8th, they announced that they were going to wind down because of some losses that they had suffered in their portfolio. So let's talk about their portfolio. They were highly invested in cryptocurrency. So what do we know that was happening in the cryptocurrency world around that time? Like towards the end of 2022, moving into 2023, you had the collapse of really huge cryptocurrency companies, right? So this affected the Silvergate Bank because they were heavily invested in cryptocurrency. So after they made the announcement March 8th, okay, that they were going to wind down a bit because of the losses they suffered, um, another bank, okay, 2 days later, the Silicon Valley Bank, they announced that they were going to attempt to raise capital. Okay. So the Silicon Valley Bank is one that we heard more about because they were in the news much more. Okay. It was a really huge deal. Now, that bank was much more invested into in the tech world. But the reason that this bank failed is because of the news. Okay. So with everything going on with Silvergate Bank, and then a couple days later, Silicon Valley Bank announces that they're going to try to raise capital. Okay. When they said that we're going to try to raise capital, what did that mean? Well, they obviously needed the capital for something, right? They had some debts or some impending debts or something, some obligations that they saw that they were not going to be able to take care of. And so they're like, okay, we're going to raise some capital. So they made that announcement, and then what they call a bank run occurred, which that was truly the cause of the collapse for Silicon Valley Bank. So what is a bank run? You guys know what a bank run is? Okay, what is a bank run? Well, a bank run is where you've got a storm of people coming to the bank all at the same time, trying to withdraw their funds. Okay, so these people had been tuned into the news. They heard the announcement. They panicked. They got scared. They all come to the bank, okay, all in the same day or in the same couple of days, and they're all taking out monies. And we're not talking about little bits of monies. We're talking about massive amounts of money, okay? And even those who had, maybe had little money, but you got to understand Silicon Valley Bank wasn't a bank for just little bits of money, right? The people banking there were wealthy people, okay? So They rushed in, bank run. Okay. Everybody trying to pull their money out at the same time. Now, listen, there is no financial institution, bank, investment firm, or otherwise that can survive a huge run of people coming to take their money out. Because what do we know about banks? Or maybe you don't know. So you're going to learn, right? What do we know about banks? Your money is not being held there at the bank. Okay. That money is being loaned out, it's being invested. These banks have credit cards and that you can get, so they pay your debt and then they are reimbursed by you as you pay off your credit card. So your money is not sitting there, right? So if too many people come to try to withdraw their money at the same time, the bank goes belly up because it cannot meet the obligations. Okay. In the United States, we are set up on what's called a fractional reserve system, which means that the banks, there's regulations that the banks have to keep a certain amount of money in reserve on hand, right? But the rest of it, they can loan out, they can invest, they can do whatever. Okay. So with Silicon Valley Bank, it's not so much what they were invested in, the tech necessarily, although it had become an issue. That's why they were trying to raise capital. But what did them in was the bank run. Okay. And the bank run was caused because of the news. And we're going to talk about the news here in just a moment. All right. So that happened. All right. Then we got Signature Bank. Okay. Signature Bank. They also frequently did business with cryptocurrency firms. Okay. They were closed by regulators because remember, like I said, they had to have a certain amount of reserves on hand. The banks have to meet certain obligations on a daily basis. And apparently they were not doing that. So the regulators came in on March 12th, okay, 2 days later from the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. 2 days later, now we've got Signature Bank being closed by the regulators, and they attributed it to systemic risk. Okay. Systemic means, that there's risk all across the board. So these collapses were the second and third largest bank failures in the history of the US. Okay. They were the largest bank collapse was Washington Mutual during the global financial crisis in 2008. Okay. So that's what happened with these banks. Do I think that there are going to be other banks that follow? Yes, I believe there are other banks that's going to follow. And let me tell you why. Okay. Again, and all of this did not just start this year. I want you to know this. Okay. All of this didn't start this year. All of this started, or actually, it didn't even start with COVID, but COVID was a huge catapult. Okay. And let me explain to you why. Um, because of COVID, right? And I remember doing some lives in 2020 talking about COVID and now how they were contemplating, stimulus to help people. Then they made decisions to give out stimulus to help people. And I did lives back then that said inflation is going to go up. Okay. Because anytime the government injects money into the economy, okay, inflation goes up. That stuff has to be paid for some kind of way. Where do we think that the government is getting this money from, right? Sure, they say maybe we pull from this program or we pull for this program or whatever, but in reality, a lot of what they're doing is leveraging debt, okay, or they're increasing debt, which, by the way, they have reported that the US has hit its debt ceiling, okay? So inflation goes up. Now, inflation goes up over these next couple years. That's what we begin to experience, right? These price increases. 2022 really the prices have gone up in 2023. We're still kind of experiencing that a little bit. Um, and so, but also what happened, right, is your interest rates too now have gone up, right? Interest rates on your mortgages, interest rates on auto loans, like interest rates have gone up. Now, a lot of banks are invested in some of their portfolios are made up largely of treasuries. Okay. So your T notes, T bills, those types of things, T bonds. And so this is what we know in the investment world about bonds. When interest rates go up, okay, the price of your bonds and some of your treasuries will come down. Okay, it has an inverse effect. That's what we call it in the financial world, an inverse effect. So when interest rates go up, the price of your bonds come down. If the price of your bonds come down, that means that the value of your portfolio has dropped. All right. So these banks, so you're saying, you're thinking about, oh, they're invested in cryptocurrency, or they're invested in tech, or they're invested in uh treasuries or bonds or whatever the case may be, mortgages, whatever the case may be. If you think about what has occurred, especially last year, remember we had a lot of, the market just dropping, and it's still a little shaky right now. A lot of people lost a lot of money in their portfolios last year, in their 401ks, in their whatever portfolios. Across the board, people were losing money. Okay. And so the banks were too. Okay. So this stuff didn't just start. Like, it didn't just all of a sudden, here we are and the bank collapsed. No, this stuff started some years ago. So now you have that going on. And now we have these banks that are collapsing, and more are likely going to collapse. Now, in 2008, the collapse was largely because of what was happening in the world of mortgages. Okay, same kind of thing. The interest rates, were going down. The value of, because a lot of banks were invested in mortgages, right? And so the value went down, banks went belly up. Okay. Now, I'm gonna go back to something that I said as I opened the topic for today, which was no financial institution can withstand a bank run, okay, or the sustained time in a down market, okay, which is what we've experienced over the last year or so. No financial institution, bank or otherwise, can withstand that for a super long period of time. But with the banks, what happens is that in 2008, they got bailed out, right? Remember that term, bailouts, bank bailouts, right? It was such a huge deal. So in 2008, these banks got bailed out. Okay, so that a lot of them would not fail, just as they're doing with First Republic right now, right? 11 other banks come to its aid. Some of the 11 of the largest banks come to its aid and gives it 30 billion so it could stay afloat. Well, not give, right? Loans at 30 billion so it could stay afloat. So in 2008, it was due to mortgages. Now, it's not mortgages per se, it's just due to a lot of different types of investments and inflation and COVID and all of that, right? The stimulus monies, all of that, just all of these things work together to put us where we are right now. And so the other piece is too, hey, good to see you, Nia. So the other piece is too, is that when Trump was president, they watered down the Dodd-Frank laws. Okay, what is Dodd-Frank? Dodd-Frank was a series of regulations that were passed so it would prevent future financial crises. Okay, but sometime during Trump's presidency, those things were watered down. So that has contributed to the 2023 bank failures that we see going on today. Okay. And so um the banks, yeah, you're absolutely right. People don't understand how money works, right? And I wish, you know what I'm saying? And I get it. It's not the sexiest thing. You know what I'm saying? It can't compete, unfortunately, with a Beyonce concert or, the Super Bowl and some of the other distractions that are in the news, right? That people spend their time debating and talking about. Um, and they are reporting on these things, right? The things that I'm telling you, these are not secrets. You know what I'm saying? This stuff is in the news. We're just not paying attention to it because what the news does is they control how much you hear of what you would hear, all of that. They control all of that, right? So it's no coincidence, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's no coincidence that people are making bank runs. Because remember what I said, bank failures have been happening forever. And what is a bank failure? It's really just a company that couldn't meet its obligations and goes belly up. Any company can do that. Any company can do that at any time, right? We've seen grocery stores go out of business, file bankruptcy and go out of business. We've seen clothing retail, stores go out of business, restaurants and things go out of business. And I'm not even talking about just in the past few years. I'm just talking about in life in general, right? If a business, Nia says, the powers that be, but we're not going to get into that today. Girl, listen. Okay, listen. But if a business can't meet its obligations, it goes belly up. Okay. The cryptocurrency firms that earlier in the year, okay, the last part of 2022 and earlier in the year, they couldn't meet its obligations. So they went belly up, right? This happens at this is just any business. It just so happens that with banks, the government or other banks will come to the aid so the bank does not fail. All right. Otherwise, there would be many, many, many more bank failures. Many more bank failures. Okay. That would happen. Okay. So in 2008, we had the bailouts that they were talking about. Now, 2023, the question is, are bailouts happening? Because they're not talking about it in the news, which is interesting to me that they're not talking about it in the news. But again, be smart. Biden announced some days ago that he came out, he went to reassure the American people, your money is safe in the banks. It'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? Even for uninsured depositors, I'll come back to that in a minute. Even for uninsured depositors, he's like, it's going to be okay. How can he get up and say that it's going to be okay that confidently? Because the government is bailing out banks. Okay? They're bailing out banks. All right. So now back to the news, as I was saying. Bank failures happen all the time. So now, why now in 2023 are they starting to focus on it again? Because this stuff has been in the news for several weeks now. Right? This stuff has been in the news for several weeks now. So why in 2023 are they focusing on it again? Because what did I say? From 2001 to 2023, there have been 563 bank failures. And we have not had any focus on bank failures until now. Right? Yes. For the insurance of the FDIC. I'm coming back to talk about that in a moment. We've not had any talk about these bank failures. Nothing has been in the news with a lot of them all over these years until now in 2023. But they happen. Right? So we have to think about these things like what? First of all, we have to know this happens. It happens. Right? We think that because they don't report on it all the time, we think, oh, it just happens like in a down economy. No, it happens. Those banks are businesses too. Okay. If you can't meet your obligations, you out of business. That's just the way it is. So why are they now talking about it? Why is it the focus now in 2023? So now the other thing you have to understand about the news, like I said earlier, is they control the narrative, whether you like it or not. Okay. If you're still someone who watches the news, because I don't watch the news, and you'd be like, Lexi, how you know all this stuff then? I read. Okay. I read. I actually go and read some the any government regulations and things having to do with finances and all that. Why? Because I'm in that industry. I'm not saying you got to do that, but the information is there. Okay. You don't have to go read the government stuff, but there's all kinds of things of what's going on in the economy that you don't have to get from the news. Okay. Because what the news does is they're going to report it, and they're going to report it in a way that in a way that gets a reaction that they desire. So they desire fear and panic. Yes, girl, the news is depressing. I haven't watched it probably since like 2010 or 2011. I've not watched the news. So people call me, girl, did you watch the news? No, I ain't watched the news. Half the time, I don't even know what stories people are talking about because I do not watch the news. Whatever I happen to get is whatever I happen to choose to read on the internet, right? So anyway, they control the narrative, and they report in a way that uh, provokes a response. Okay, so if they want to create fear and panic, they're going to use certain words and gestures and how they deliver and everything to bring about fear and panic. This is why the people of the Silicon Valley Bank rush down there to go and get their money out. Okay, because the news had created that frenzy, right? That's what they did with COVID. Girl, don't get me started. Okay. You will get me started up in here. Don't get me started. So now they're talking about Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and you're going to see some others that they talk about. I don't even think this is the hugest one. I think they're going to have a huge one that they're going to make an example out of. But why are they doing this? That's the question. Why are they doing this, and why now? That's the $1 million question. But before I get to that, to bank or not to bank, okay? Now, when I work with my clients, I say to my clients, listen, you shouldn't have more than three, absolutely, mind control. You shouldn't have more than 3 months of your expenses in the bank. That's just me. Some will say 6 to 9 months of your expenses in the bank. Okay. In either case, I would not keep a plethora of money in the bank. Okay. After 3 months of expenses, okay, or maybe you want to do 6 months, but after 3 months of expenses are saved up in the bank, the rest of that money should be invested, various types of investments, and going to work for you. Why? Because the bank does not keep up with inflation. Okay. Yesterday, I think we read that the inflation rate was 6 point something percent. The bank is not giving 6%. Okay. They're not even giving 1%. Okay. They're not even giving a half of a percent. Okay. So the rest of that money beyond 3 months of your expenses should be in various other investments. And I'm going to do the next podcast. We're going to talk about that specifically, but that's that, right? Now, the FDIC says that they will, if something happens to the bank, if it goes under 250, they're going to, insure you for up to 250,000. Okay. So now if you're thinking, well, I want to have more than 3 months of expenses in there, I wouldn't have more than that 250,000 in the bank, because they're telling you, listen, if the bank collapses, it's going to, we're going to reimburse you up to 250,000. That's it. Okay. For a particular, now you can get 250,000 for each account, which is what I'm going to get to, right? So if you just have to have more than 3 months of your expenses in a bank, if you just have to do that, then I would make sure to spread it across different banks. Some people are asking, should they move away from the smaller community banks? I wouldn't do that because that would hurt the community banks. It would hurt your community. Okay. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pull all my money out of there. But if you want to diversify it and put it some in a smaller community bank and then one in one of the larger banks that you can find across the United States and such, do that. Okay. But I would not keep more than 3 months of my expenses in any one bank. Okay. That's just me. I don't know y'all. I don't know your personal situation. This is educational purposes only, but that would be me. Okay. So, because the FDIC is only going to, up to 250,000. So, the FDIC, let's talk about them a little bit. Well, I'm not going to talk about them a whole lot, but what I am going to say is this. In the language, okay, the law as it relates to the FDIC and reimbursing people, what it says is that the FDIC should make an effort to reimburse people as soon as possible. That's all it says. There are no, it doesn't say, within a week, 2 weeks, 3 days, 30 days. None of that. It just says as soon as possible. Now, historically, because I don't want to scare you, historically, the FDIC has paid out in days. Okay. That's what they've done. But I just want you to know that that's the wording in the law, right? As soon as possible. Okay. Literally. All right. You can go look for yourself. All right. You want to fact check me, you can do that. That's what it says. All right. So just know that. Okay. Now, historically, like I said, I'm not trying to scare you because the people of God are not scared. Okay. I'm just letting you know this is what it says. Okay. So to bank or not to bank, I gave you my thought on it. I want to know what you guys think. Where are you? To bank or not to bank? Based on what you've heard me say, or just based on, what have you been thinking lately? Where are you? I also want to know whether or not all of this that has been going on, how you feel about it. Do you have some level of fear? And that's okay if you do. We're going to talk about it. Do you have some level of fear? Do you have some, what are you feeling? Drop it in the comments and let me know. Okay. I want to share with you all that, as kingdom citizens, as people of God, he does not give us the spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind. Sound mind for this conversation, that part, right? Which means that, okay, I have a sound mind. So let me go and learn about what's going on so I can prepare, right? Or I can, begin to position myself so that I don't get hit by this. If you read my testimony in the post earlier in 2008, I got wiped out, right? And a lot of that was because I was not prepared financially. I was not making the right decisions financially. I was just living for the day, right? I wasn't, thinking about, oh, the economy, it just goes and things go in a circle. That's just the way it is. Even the Bible tells you that it's the circle of life, right? So we're going to have up times in the economy, and we're going to have, okay times and then down times and then okay times and up times and then okay times and down times. That's just the way it goes, right? Which is why I said back in 2011, like, I am not going to be in this position again, because I see that these things happen, right? It's just circular. It comes around. It may not be as exactly as it did the way before, but there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. And then we're going to be up again, and then we're going to be down again. And so therefore, as kingdom citizens, we are not afraid. We just make sure that we prepare. Okay. So if in this day and time, I'm I'm just appalled. It's like the Great Depression recycling again in modern times. Yeah. And the thing is, they've even been tentative on using the word recession. We are in a recession, folks. They've been tentative on using that word. Um, but anywho, we just prepare. Okay. God has given us a sound mind. All right. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, what is that called? Right? If you've lived through a time when it's up and you live through a time when it's down and you live through a time when it's up and you live through a time when it's down and you keep staying in a state of unpreparedness, what is that called? Right? Yeah, they are dancing around it. That is called insanity. Okay? And God did not create insane people. Okay? Psalms 127:1, unless God watches over the city, the watchman guard in vain. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Minister Patrick. Absolutely. Right. So he tells us that we need to, we were given sound mind. He tells us in Deuteronomy that we are given the ability to create wealth. He tells us in John 10:10 that the thief comes not but for to steal, kill, and destroy. We are told this. So we need to prepare. And the Bible, in every area of our lives, including finances, including what to do in this very situation, tells us what to do, right? Yes, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Absolutely insane, right? And so I determined back in 2011, like, hey, when this economy dips again, does, whether it's a big dip or a little dip, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to be prepared. I'm not going to be in that situation again where I lost my home and I lost my car and I lost my job, lost everything, right? Because I was just living for the day. No, I'm going to be prepared. So here's what I'm telling you all. Some of you are still thinking like the bank is the safest place. A bank can go belly up just like any company. And so therefore, it would behoove us that we don't put all of our eggs, you all already know, right, in one basket. We don't put all of our money in one place. I don't care if it is the bank, okay? But the other piece is our God is a God of multiplication. And so we have to learn how to invest. Okay. Various ways to invest. I'm not getting into that today. That'll be the next podcast. But in order to be prepared, right? These are things that we have to do. We feel like, oh, if I leave my money in the bank, which I'm saying, leave no more than about 3 months of your expenses. But we think that, oh, if I leave my money in the bank, I'm not at risk. Look, folks, life is risk. Period. Life is risk. You stepping outside your door is risk. You getting in your car and driving to work every day is risk. You working on that job is risk because that job can close, that the doors can close. The doors can close, right? So there's nothing that we should trust more than God. And yes, the government can also go belly up. Okay, and quiet as it's kept. All right. They already belly up. Which brings me to this point where I was saying earlier. Why are we hearing about these bank failures now in 2023? Because they happen all the time. Okay. Yes, they happen. Sometimes they happen, if we're in a down economy, you're going to have more of them, more bank failures. But they happen even when things are going okay. So why right now are we hearing about bank failures? And why right now is the news, the narrative, panic and fear to drive people? Because you would think they would do the opposite. I mean, think about it, people. Don't you think that they would do so? We know the news is controlled. Okay. If you don't know and you on here and you still kind of under a rock, I don't know. Right? The news controls the narrative. Fear of the unknown. Yeah. But why would they? You would think that the narrative would be, hey, Let's reassure the people so that they don't come taking all their money out of the bank. Right? Why would they want the narrative of fear and panic, driving people to their banks and pulling money out and causing these banks to collapse at a faster rate in this period of time? Y'all, we got to be asking the right questions. Okay. So, also, what's been going on, which is not a secret. Okay. This is this is stuff that you can find out. This is not just because, oh, I got licenses and all this kind of, no, ain't got nothing to do with my licenses and none of that. Ain't got nothing to do with none of that. You can know this information too. We know they've been working on a digital coin. The United States has been working on a digital coin. Other countries, China and other countries, have rolled out their digital coin. The US is in the process of rolling out its digital coin. And you know what the narrative is going to be? And I'm not saying anything is wrong with a digital coin, but we are in, how should I explain this? There are the end of times and there is the time of the end. Okay. We are in an end of times, meaning we are moving into a new era. Yes, study to show yourself approved. Absolutely. Okay. We are moving into a new era. That is what's happening, people. We are moving into a new era. The US has been working on a digital coin. Okay. And the reason why they're driving this narrative of panic and fear and collapsing the banks and all this kind of stuff is so that they can use the banks as a scapegoat to say, this is why we have to move to a digital coin. The digital coin will be safer. The digital coin will be more reliable. The digital coin would have to worry about having physical assets. Listen, with this inflation, with the injection of stimulus from COVID and all of that, it has been driving the value of the dollar down. Okay. Now, this all the stuff that's going on is just to usher us into this new era. That's what's going on. Okay. And they're going to use all this bank stuff to scare people into moving into that direction. And you know what's going to happen? People are going to do it because they're scared. They scared and they're panicking. So when you're scared and panicking, a lot of times you're just going to go with whichever way the wind blows. Okay. And now I'm not saying that the digital coin is a bad thing. I'm not saying that. I'm also not saying it's a good thing. Okay. And I've got my reasons. That's another show. One other thing I want to say is that because they want to compete with crypto. Nia says this is why the Federal Reserve had that coin shortage too. Absolutely. None of this stuff is, girl. Anyway, look, girl, listen, y'all gonna have you going there. None of this stuff is just happening just because. Okay, none of it is happening just because. All right. So now the US wants to compete also with not just other countries and their digital coins, but with cryptocurrency. Why? Because crypto is decentralized. Crypto is decentralized. What does that mean? That means that the people are in charge, not the government. Okay. So now they're creating a coin. They've created a coin. It's just going to be rolling it out soon. Right. And they're doing that so that they can be in charge again, because they're going to say, oh, our coin is safer. It's backed by mortgages, or is this or that or whatever. Mark my words, y'all. Right? And they're going to, which they have been doing since the emerging of crypto, they're going to be continuing to spin the narrative of you being afraid of crypto and investing in crypto. Now, is crypto volatile? Yeah, but so is any investment. There's risk with any investment, okay? And there are some risks that you should take and some that you shouldn't, okay? It's called calculated risk, Okay. That's what wise, savvy people do. Calculated risk. Okay. But that's the narrative they're going to spin. Yes, it's all strategic. It's all strategic. Okay. So we need to be prepared to move into a new era. And if you're not prepared, you're going to be left behind and you're going to feel the brunt of it. Okay. Professional gambling. Is that what you call it? People have asked that question, like investing, is it, gambling or whatever, but not, we'll talk about that too. Anyway, the differences between that, but because our God is a God of multiplication, right? Matthew chapter 25 tells us all about it. Any resource that God has given us. And actually that was the mandate to Adam and Eve, to be fruitful and to multiply. Right. So, there's multiplying, then there's gambling. Okay. So, yes. All right. This is why this stuff is going on. But to go back to the original question, just to remind you all, and maybe some of you who may just be joining, the question was to bank or not to bank. And I am saying, and this is just general because I don't know everybody's personal situations. Okay. When I'm with my clients one-on-one, I can give them a more customized, specific what they need to do personally as it relates to banks and other investments. But generally speaking, this is why I say no more than 3 months of your expenses in a bank. The rest of it needs to be in other types of investments, in various types of investments, from real estate to gold and silver to crypto to precious metals to whatever, various things, right? Because that is, you can't be, if you're hit one way, right, then you still got all these other legs working for you. But if you've got your stuff all in one place and that one place gets hit, you're done for. And most of us, that's what's happening, is that because we have all of our stuff in one place, typically the bank. The bank is not keeping up with inflation. Banks can go belly up. Okay. It's just that they've been bailing them out. And I don't know that it's a good idea to do that. But they do it. It's very strategic. And we've already talked about that. So to bank or not to bank, yes, but not all your money in the bank. Okay. Up to three months of your expenses. At the most, up to the 250,000 the FDIC, will get back to you. But even that 250,000, you know what I'm saying? I would divvy it up, in a couple, two or three different banks, right? So this is generally speaking. Okay, I don't know your personal situation because I'm talking to a group of people right now. So this is just a general, for educational purposes only. Okay. You always say, Lexi told me. No, I don't know you. I don't know your situation. Okay. I'm just generally speaking. All right. You're welcome, Minister Patrick. Anybody with questions? Because I haven't seen any questions. I thank you guys. Thank you all for your comments and things, but I haven't seen any questions. So if you have questions, you can drop them. And if you did ask a question, you may be on a platform that I can't see the comments right now. And so don't worry, I will check, that page or that platform and make sure that if you have a question, that I address that question. Would you recommend trust right now or not? Or no? Absolutely, I would. I would recommend trust in general, whether the economy's down or up. And yeah, because trusts they are a form of protection for your assets. So again, there's different types of trust. Don't know your personal situation, but there's different types of trust. You got revocable, irrevocable, living trust. You got, so there's different types. But do I recommend them in general? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. Just like I recommend you having a will, Just like I recommend you have a power of attorney for your health, power of attorney for your finances, your health, your advanced health directive, all of that, all of that. All right. So I hope that this has been helpful. I don't want to belabor the point. What can a person do with 500? Child, don't get me started. Child, and that's the thing, right? Because I know I used to be like this too. Like I only got so much, especially back in that time frame between '08 and 2011. Like, oh, I can't really do much. I can't do much with this, so I'm just not. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna leave it where it is because what can I do with this? Tyra, there are things that you can do with that $500 depending upon what what your goals are, and all of that. There are hedge funds, crypto hedge funds that you can yield a weekly return 2 to 4% on average. Again, this is an investment. It's not guaranteed. Blah, blah. I have to say that by law. I have to say that. And it's the truth. But yeah, that is way better than putting that 500 in the bank, because the 500 sitting in the bank will be 500 still 10 years from now if you don't add anything to it. But in something like this crypto hedge fund that I'm talking about, it can grow from week to week to week, and you don't have to add anything to it. And then you've got that the power of compound interest, right? Because you put it in there, you leave it alone. You ain't trying to take stuff out. You can get in it and take stuff out, but I don't recommend it. Let the compounding do its thing, right? And before you know it, I mean, can you be patient for 5 years and let that 500 do its thing? Can you be patient for 3 years? Can you be patient for, whatever it takes, depending on whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish? I think so. I mean, most of us are on jobs right now. We got a 401k and it's taken 40 years to just get, for some of y'all, $30,000 because it hasn't been, divvied up right. Some of y'all may get 80,000, 100,000, 40 years. But with 500, can you wait about 5 years? So Tyra, if that question is a personal question, reach out to me, because I can definitely show you specifically what you can do with that $500 and what it could possibly, what the potential is for that. Okay. That's crazy. And people make that in a year just working. Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. So the narrative is do the 401ks, and nothing wrong with those things. Yes, do them, right? But they're telling you these are the only things you should do because these are safe and these are, blah, blah, blah. They're taking you 40 years, 40, 50 years to get what? Anybody that's wealthy right now didn't get wealthy off of 401k. I'm sorry. Anybody who is really wealthy did not get wealthy off of a 401k. Okay? Not a 401k alone. So we have to have a outside conversation. Absolutely. Now, in the description, the first link is to my Money Mastery for Her Facebook group, my private Facebook group. So if you are a woman on here, and especially if you're a woman entrepreneur, but if you're a woman on here listening to this, you're not in my Facebook group, I need you to get in the group, okay? Because more of the conversations are happening in there. So get in the group. That's one. The second link that you see is a link for my calendar. Click the link, get on my calendar, okay? It's a 30-minute free, okay, I hate saying free, complimentary session. Okay. Now, when you schedule and let it be that, because I don't fool with people who have to reschedule and reschedule. I don't fool around. Okay. I'm just telling you right now, if you put yourself on my calendar, show up at the time that you said you're going to show up. Okay. Because it's not for me, it's for you. I'm revisiting Rich Dad, Poor Dad again. Absolutely. That is a book that I have all of my coaching clients read, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. without fail, every time. That book is one that you should read every year. For Kingdom Citizens, which are mostly people who are usually listening to me, another one is The Storehouse Principle. Another good book. That these are just books that you should just read every year. Every year. Okay. Are there any other questions? This podcast went a little longer than normal, but I've been gone for a few weeks. And then I wanted to make sure, we talked about this bank thing. I know it's hot in the news right now. Oh, and the other thing is, I'm going to tell y'all to turn the news off. If you're watching the news, turn it off. Turn it off. There are lots of other places that you can still figure out what's going on in your community or what's going on in the United States or what's going on in the world. If you're watching the news, if the news is where you're getting your information, especially about finances, turn it off. Okay? I mean that. With all love in my heart, turn it off. All right. All right. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any, at least on the platforms where I can see questions. But if you guys have questions after I get off of here, you can still drop them in this thread. I will certainly answer them, or wherever platform that you're watching from. Share this if you haven't already shared it. Okay, this is not a time to just suck something in for yourself and not share with other people. And that's not the way of God. Okay, share it. People need to just do your part. You don't have to know nothing about nothing. Just click of a button, share. Because somebody on your timeline is looking for answers. You may not be looking for answers, but somebody on your timeline is looking for answers. Okay. So I thank y'all for tuning in. Oh, let me tell you all what's coming up next month. In the month of April, I'm doing the passion. I always mix up these words. Passion, purpose. Oh, Lord, let me find it. Passion, purpose, peace, purpose, passion. Oh, I am messing it up. I don't want to. Anyway, I'm speaking for that summit. There's a plethora of great speakers. So just be looking out for that. I'm going to be posting that again in May. I am all these P's. This is why I can't get nothing straight, because one is purpose, presence, something else. I'm gonna post it, but that's in May. That's going to be in North Carolina. The one in April, that's online. Okay, so anybody can get to that one. The one in May is in North Carolina. So I'm going to be posting those two things. You guys get in the rooms so that we can be prepared. Okay, so we can be prepared. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. I am Lexi Johnson, international speaker, licensed financial coach, wealth strategist, helping women entrepreneurs to double their wealth in less than 1 year. Talk to you guys next time. Peace.